The bulb casting day is quickly approaching, but while we wait for that to happen, I get to get back into the boat and start working on the systems room. We also got a really sweet package in the mail that we're going to be installing at the end of the episode. This is the space that will become the engine room or systems room. It is basically the entire space underneath the cockpit. Okay, so we've got all of the fiberglass little projects done inside the engine room, the systems room, and this weekend I'd really like to get it painted. And Dave was here the other day and he dropped off all the primer and the paint, and he also dropped off this fiberglass surface prep stuff, which I'm really excited to use. It is basically a wash for all this bare fiberglass that some of which hasn't even been sand prepped. And how this stuff works is you roll it on and then you take a red Scotch-Brite and scrub everything. And there's enough grittiness in this fiberglass surface prep as well as in a red Scotch-Brite that is enough paint prep for paint application. And so we'll scrub it all down, clean it all up. I'm hoping to get all that done today. And then this weekend I can prime paint and look forward to a brand new systems room.
So this might be a dumb question, but this seems a whole lot easier than sanding and fairing and sanding and fairing. Why couldn't you just use this on the rest of the boat for painting?
It is a good question, and the difference is that I'm not doing any fairing inside the engine room. And so it's all bare fiberglass, and I don't care that there is going to be, you can see you'll be able to see the fiberglass print through, and you'll be able to see all the imperfections in the surface, and that's why I'm just going to use this fiberglass prep stuff to paint. If we were doing a fairing job, if we were doing like something like the top sides, the interior, those things all need to look really nice, and that's why I had to apply fairing and sand and fair and sand and fair.
Right, but since it's a systems room, not a living space, it doesn't have to look perfect.
Exactly. It just needs a really nice protecting coat of paint.
While we watch this very relaxing footage of you working very hard, I have some questions for you. Some philosophical questions, in fact.
Fun. Because I'm so philosophical.
You are. You're a boat philosopher. So my first question starts with a story. I wish the viewers could see Matt. He's nodding. Am I known for my stories?
You are.
Okay, for better or for worse. So, 5 years ago, when we got back from our Pacific cruise, I was working as a teacher one day, and Matt was out working as a shipwright, and he'd come across the posting from John about releasing Duracell. He sent me a text that day, which I got during my lunch break, and it simply said, "I found our next boat." So my question for you is, 6 years later, because that was in 2019, do you still think you found the right boat for us?
There could not have been a better boat for this project, in my mind. Like, we found it could not be for what I wanted to do, it could not be a more perfect boat.
Well, from that first day that you met Duracell, that we went out to John's house south of Seattle and saw the boat in person for the first time, that's when the Duracell twinkle started, and it hasn't stopped shining since. Again, I wish the viewers could see the expression on Matt's face right now. It's real. The Duracell twinkle's real. Mm-hmm. And hopefully it's not fiberglass.
It's not.
4 years into this boat build, what's a question you're still asking yourself?
Every day I'm asking myself if it's going to work. This whole thing is kind of a big experiment. I'm very, very confident in it. Taking a big old race boat and turning it into a cruising boat with tons of modification. We're changing the boat dramatically. I don't know if it'll be as fast as we hope it is, if I'll be able to sail it to its potential. There was a guy over here last week who I was given a tour to, but I haven't really talked to anybody about this, and the fact that the boat, in order to keep it like comfortable, you have to sail fast. Like the boat has to be going fast. Otherwise it's going to be moving around all the time. It's too light. It's a light boat.
When you picture launch day and Duracell on the water, what do you imagine feeling?
I think this relates to the last question, and if answering the question of if it's going to work, I'll just be feeling like nerves, like total like nervous anxiousness, because I'll be finding out if the boat floats.
Hopefully it floats.
How hard it's going to be to park it, you know, if it's going to be like close to being on its lines. I'm going to be learning a lot in those moments, and like just being extremely nervous. There's going to be a lot of people like watching. That makes me nervous.
Yeah, Matt and I are still debating if we're going to invite all of you to
We're going to do it in the
lunch.
middle of the night.
Yeah, that's what he's threatening.
The interesting thing about this product is once I've scrubbed the space down, I just wash it out with water. I'm just rinsing off the cleaner with water instead of using solvent and rags. I actually ended up using my pressure washer to really get most of it out, and then came back and wiped it down with some rags to sop up leftover water, and I used a bunch of fans to really let it dry out. After the space was dry, it was finally time to start the painting process. I started with primer. I really like this interior 860 primer from Interlux. If I spray it on, I only have to apply one coat, and there's no sand prepping the primer before the paint goes on. I can apply the paint directly to the primer with no sanding, and the open time to apply paint is a whole year. Interlux recommends that if I'm going to be applying paint to the bilge with this primer, that I apply it within a week. So that's what I did. The day after the primer went on, and it was dry enough to walk on, I painted. For paint, I sprayed 3 coats of Matterhorn White High Gloss All Grip, which is a polyurethane. Unfortunately, my GoPro glitched while I painted and I lost most of the footage, but I'm sure you know the drill. Another huge thanks to Axel Nobel and Dave, who have supplied all our paint, primers, and everything that comes with it, and the guidance while we get our boat finished. This is very exciting. So today we have something really fun that we're going to do. We're going to install our first appliance. Now, we are planning to install a really big battery bank, and we wanted to take advantage of that in as many ways as possible, which means that we can veer from more traditional appliances in the boat that you would normally find. And so one way we're going to do that is we're going to install an induction stove. The problem with finding with induction stoves is they're not very common, and so the ones that you do find are extremely expensive. We never would have been able to afford this, but I've been cruising eBay for a long time, just hoping beyond hope that I would randomly find something like this. And sure enough, there is a company in Alameda, California called Blue Pelican Marine that has an eBay store. It's a consignment store in Alameda, and they happen to have one of these. It's brand new, and it's a sweet induction stove.
Can we do the big reveal?
Yep. Ugh. It's really heavy. Yep, it's an induction. It's GN Space is the name of the company. They're British, and yeah, it's a 3-burner marine induction stove. It's a beautiful, beautiful unit. I've read lots of really good reviews and comments about it, but like I said, extremely expensive. This is probably not the appropriate time to install this thing, but it's so cool. We're so excited about it that we are just going to do it anyway. It's not going to hurt anything, and it's like a really fun, like motivating project just to see how it looks in the boat. So let's go to the boat and check out the area where we're going to install it. Right, so this is where the stove is going to go, between these 2 drawers on either side of it. One of the big projects that goes along with installing the stove is obviously cutting away the countertop right here. So we'll be cutting that out, installing the hinges, I guess they're called, for where the stove gimbals, and starting to think about how it's going to be wired in. We're not going to do any wiring this time around, but we'll just start to think about that kind of stuff. Okay, I've done a bunch of measuring and made sure that this thing is actually going to fit, and I'm ready to start cutting this counter part out. So, don't want to screw this one up, obviously. So I use my multi-tool to find the exact position of the side wall of the box. And now I'm going to use my track saw to actually make the actual cuts for the sides and the back. I'll finish cutting the piece out. Cool. That wasn't so bad. The nice thing is that this is going to be the perimeter of this whole countertop will be covered in a fiddle, like a trim piece that goes all the way around, and so those cuts don't have to be absolutely perfect because, like I said, it's gonna be finished nicely. So, but I got it really, really close. I think it looks really good. So the next step is to bring the stove in, I think. To install the gimbals, I installed G10 backing plates on the opposite sides of the box walls and wood spacers on the inside. The backing plates are especially necessary because the walls are foam cored and would be crushed by the through bolts without the plates and spacers. All right, let's see if this oven fits. This thing is pretty heavy, so it's gonna be tough getting it up there. Okay, you ready? Yanni just helped me get it up on the counter here. So now we can move it into place. There's these little rings that go on these are the gimbaling bolts. There we go. Like a glove.
Would you say it's fair to say you're loving the oven?
I am loving it. What do you think?
Looks amazing.
Yanni and I feel like a huge milestone. It's starting to really feel like what the Galley is going to feel like when it's done. There's a lot to say about this. The alternative to an induction stove is obviously a propane system. With propane, it's perfectly good on a boat. You buy a propane tank and you run propane to the stove, and it runs both the oven and the burners. One thing we don't like about propane is that, well, two things. It introduces a lot of pollution into the environment, as well as moisture. This is a lot drier. The downfalls to an induction stove obviously are that you're running it off of batteries. So we have a huge battery bank, and that's why we felt like we could afford to install one of these things, especially with a huge solar array and a backup generator. This being a British stove, it uses European power, so we'll have to run it at 230 volts and I think 50 hertz, which means that we will have to have a dedicated inverter just for the stoves. We paid about the same for this stove as we would for like a Force 10 propane stove. With the inverter, it will probably cost a little bit more to install this system than it would a propane system, because with propane you have to install the line and the regulator and the switching and valves and all that stuff. So with buying an inverter and installing that whole electrical system will probably be a bit more expensive, but we think this is worth it. There will be fiddles installed all the way around the Galley. I haven't decided if I'm going to put fiddles on the forward and aft sides, or if I'm just going to trim it out so that it's flush. I'd be curious to hear your opinion on whether you think it should be flush or done with fiddles. I'm kind of leaning towards just making it flush. I think it'd be a nice clean look. And fiddles are mostly for keeping stuff falling off of the counters, and so you're mostly working, you know, when the boat's heeling from one side to the other. I'm very excited to see how the rest of this Galley comes together. It's gonna go very quickly, I think and hope. But yeah, so far so good. Roasted spectre. We have a couple new Patreons to thank this week. First is for Sorel from his wife Melanie. They are from Cape Town, but now they live in the Netherlands. To Sorel, it sounds like you've gotten your interest in boating from our channel, and if you decide to take on your own boat project, I encourage you, and I would love to see a picture one day. And also to Nick, who he actually does gear review on YouTube, and I've watched a few of his episodes. They're really interesting, and it sounds like he's just really into folks that are doing interesting projects. So thank you so much to both Nick and Sorel and Melanie. And if you're interested in joining our Patreon community, you can find us at the Duracell Project on patreon.com. So thank you again, and see you next week.